Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. I have decided to pop in and do a review of the last episode of Married to Medicine, season 9, episode 2. So, for those of you who are watching, if you're in the United Kingdom and you may probably be aware of Bravo TV, or you have an app like Hey You, or indeed you can find this program in many of the live streams. And of course, those of you in the United States who communicate a lot are quite used to it. So let's get into it. So this couple of days was the Married to Medicine season 9 episode 2. And I'd just like to say before I go on, the girls are bringing it in. I mean, seeing all these women from Dr. Jackie, Dr. Simone, even Dr. Heavenly. She's kind of become a little bit funny, but let's get into it. What happened in this last episode? So it starts off, we see with Quad. And I must say, before I go ahead, I'm actually really liking Quad because, I mean, when we started, those of us have been following this Bravo production, Married to Medicine. We saw Quad, mature from a newly wedded wife, and then she was married. Then she and was it Dr. Eugene? I think so. Then eventually, sadly, they divorced. But one thing I noticed, I've always liked about Paul, is her level-headedness and her strength as a woman. So anyway, on this season, it's wonderful to see the ladies. I've already reviewed episode 1 of season 9, so you can go back and check my video. So on this episode 2, we see Quad playing anti-mom, which for me personally is a wonderful, softer way of seeing Quad. And even there was a flashback, or from the production showing like the last season we saw when she bought herself a Corvette, describing her life as a free woman, but being able to recognize now that she's decided to take on the responsibility of raising her niece, or rather her nephew, Mason, I think is the name. And sadly, I didn't even realize. The production now shows us Paul's brother, who I think had appeared 1 or 2 times over the years, and apparently for no reason, in his 30s, just dropped and died. So that's really sad. But I must say, for every one of us out there, we really pray to have sisters or siblings or family like Paul and the mom, especially Paul, who clearly, she seems to be doing quite well. So the last season, we saw her in her new townhouse. But on this occasion, apparently she lives in a 14,000 square footage new home where she has moved in her mom and her nephew. And so, she was describing the way her life has changed. She's now doing the school run, but she wouldn't change it for the world. And for that, I do admire Paul. Now, moving along, then we come along and see Latoya um, going to visit Dr. Contessa. And I must say, I am personally glad to see that Dr. Contessa and her husband are still very much together and seemingly working through all their marriage issues from the last season. And so they show them with their kids on both sides playing, and then they talked a little bit about Dr. Heavenly. It seems like this season everybody seems to have a problem with Dr. Heavenly, who I'll come to her. I find Heavenly a very interesting, character. I mean, sometimes she can't get on one's nerve, but that's by the time I'll come to that. I think I'm kind of liking her a bit more this season, but it seems like whether she knows or she doesn't know, we all know she's got her own YouTube channel and seems to be rubbing her friends the wrong way. Apparently, Dr. Contessa is very much very angry with her because apparently Heavenly doesn't seem to understand that talking about her friends or anything her friends and would have discussed in private is not it's not clever. No one likes to talk to their friend, and then you suddenly hear about your friend talking about what you've discussed with them privately. So it seems like Dr. Contessa is very hurt. So we move along, and then it shows us where Heavenly herself goes to Dr. Jackie's clinic. I must say, I do find this bit funny. And then Dr. Jackie does open the door. Apparently, she was about to finish, and Heavenly, tells her she hasn't seen her period. She's not sleeping very well, and typical Heavenly, she goes on beyond necessary information, a bit of vulgarity, not my cup of tea. Anyway, and so Jackie, who's an obstetrician, told her that it's most likely she is starting menopause. And of course, Heaven is like, oh my God, she knows how to throw shade, honestly. And then she goes on trying to deny and saying to Jackie, you're thinking too much ahead. Who says I may not be pregnant? I'm too young to start those older women's things, she calls it. Anyway, it was a bit of a banter. And of course, Dr. Jackie, drew blood and to do the test. So they talked a bit about the ladies and about her up and coming new shop. So Heavenly now has a beauty supplies shop back there in Atlanta. And so we later saw Heavenly go into her business place. And I must say, good on her. Very well laid out, very well thought through. And, this is one thing I love about a lot of, I say Americans are a bit more like most African countries, where even though she's a successful dentist, a doctor, she still wants to hustle and start a business that is completely unrelated to her profession. So anyway, Heavenly now approaches her store. They discusses about the up and coming, what do you call it, her up and coming um, fashion show to introduce her wig shop and beauty shop to her friends and potential clients. And so we'll never see Contessa debating whether she really wanted to go because she's still very upset with Heavenly at this point. Anyway, we come to that. Before then, the camera now shows us Aliyah. Aliyah is the only Indian American in the cast who used to be quite close with Latoya. They fell out the last season, but they seem to be, according to what Latoya was saying to Contessa when she visited, they are basically on the mending sort of level with their friendship. I like to hear that because last season it kind of felt as if unnecessary to me. It was childish, as if there was some kind of um, competition. There need not be. There's no point for all that. At the end of the day, all their husbands are doing well. And Leah's husband is a massive massive fistula, I think. Those doctors or consultants that specialize on reconstruction of the face. And they seem to be doing well. And if you look at my previous video, as I explained, they ended up finishing their beautiful home beat um, three times the price of what or budget they had in mind. And then Latoya's husband, he's doing it very well. So I don't really see why any of these ladies need to have to try to impress each other. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, just enjoy and live your best life, basically. So we see all that, and so and where was I? So anyway, so they now showed Aliyah at home, and showing her she was preparing to rush off for school run and complaining about not having enough time. I'm thinking quietly, as a mom who's raised three children with hardly any help, occasionally I may have had an op-ed that didn't last long, or here and there trying to hire people which is a nightmare. A nightmare. I don't know what country you're watching from, but in the UK or even in the US is a nightmare. So there she is. She's got a nanny who apparently seemed to have been living with her ever since she was pregnant with her children, who are now, is it 7 and 9 or something like that? And there you are still complaining about the hustle or finding it difficult to get them ready and all that kind of thing. Anyway, each to their own. Anyway, and then she rushes off to work. Then later they show her coming back with her husband. I can't remember his name. He's a doctor, obviously, and their nanny, who seems a wonderful, lovely Indian American lady. And she had apparently prepared them a nice meal, ushered them in to come into the dining room to eat. And were busy wondering, what's going on? And unfortunately for her, when she sits down to tell them what she had in mind, turns out apparently the lady wants to quit her job completely and go back to Texas to be able to support her daughter. I can relate to that. When my kids were much younger back in the day, just when I thought for me that I had found the right nanny, what happened? Suddenly, unfortunately, this lady needed to go and support her own daughter. And so you find this nanny business, for any mother in the West, is a struggle. So in my mind, I understand that, Leah, you've been used to this lady, you've had it easy. She's been there, she's helped you with your kids and allowed you, because she's actually a blogger herself, and she's been able to do what she wants to do. And now she's telling you she wants to go back. And so they try to convince her, and she explained in a very loving way that she had made up her mind and she was going. Anyway, so fast forward now, the program now brings us up to everybody seems in their own corner, still angry at Dr. Heavenly, who seems completely oblivious of what was going on. Anyway, what I must say is that they eventually now show us where Dr. Heavenly now is ready to open and launch her new store, to be able to, let people know what she's got to offer. And I must say, like I said earlier, her store is really beautiful, very well done, very classy. Even she said it herself. Oh, she wants to prove everybody wrong because people always said she couldn't do her. Well, I can tell by the looks of it, it looks like she found herself some good store managers. Yeah, two nice looking ladies who know what they're doing. So we go ahead, and then of course they show us a funny big clip where Heavenly, last year or two, Heavenly was on high heeled shoes, though that expensive pair of shoes she had bought. And then, because what happened was, she was trying to tell Paul, who, let's be honest, Paul is like the fashionista in that group, one of them anyway. And so was trying to tell Paul that she will show her how to walk in heels. And Paul is like, you teaching me how to walk on heels? Come on, girl. So the camera now flashes back, showing Dr. Heavenly wearing a very lovely pair of high heel shoes. And even she herself was saying to Paul as they walked, she couldn't walk. And she was literally going tip tap, tip tap, tip tap. So that was kind of funny for her to turn around and try to tell Paul, I will teach you how to walk on this fashion show. Anyway, so eventually they showed the ladies. Dr. Jackie came over because earlier on, when Dr. Heavenly had been to her store, she got her assistants to make a space for Dr. Jackie's product, and the product apparently is Volition or something, some beauty serum. That's what it was. So Dr. Jackie, I'm not surprised, because I think even in real life, she and Heavenly are quite good friends. So it was actually quite nice for Heavenly to agree for Dr. Jackie to bring her stand to sell her own beauty product from Heavenly's store. And so some of the women, I think it was Paul, Dr. Jackie, Dr. Simone, Aliyah, yeah, who were amongst the people, and Dr. Heavenly's daughter. What's her name? I can't remember. Anyway, her only daughter, who's now quite a big young lady. So they were amongst the people who were going to model for this wig. And so when Contessa came with Latoya, of course, she made a snap remark and said to everybody, "Oh, are these the only people you invited to model for you?" And heavily trust her mouth doesn't hold back. And she quite rightly told Contessa, "Well, those are the people who've been, you know, who've been with me and people that have been around, that talk to me. So they talked to me and told me that they will be interested in modeling. So those are the people indirectly saying, you have not been in touch with me." And I remember earlier in the program, there was a place she complained about not knowing what she's done to Contessa. You see, that's the thing about the Heavenly. I think Latoya described Heavenly perfectly. You see, in the early season, I've always found Heavenly's mouth. Sometimes it can hit below the belt. Though she can be funny, but like Latoya said, the best way she can describe Heavenly is she keeps on apologizing about something, but then she goes back to do the same thing again and again. And I'm afraid I'm leaning towards agreeing with Latoya on this one. Anyway, and during the lunch, there comes this interesting-looking man character. I cannot remember his name. Who apparently came from Miami, has 25 funeral homes, and made contact with Heavenly, and wanted to do business. So Heavenly's beauty supply could supply them with the wigs they would need for their funeral home. But then Trust Heavenly, in the confessionals, she describes the man as wait, wait a minute. Let me get this. I want to get this point. Let me see. Um, the way she described this man, I want to bear with me. Okay, okay. Okay, let me see. Let me put on my phone a little bit so I can hear this. Sorry, guys. I really need to capture this. Okay. And so, okay. What's the man's name? Let me see. Let me see.
with me to be one of his main suppliers for wigs. I just wanted to show you around the shop and let you know that you're making the right
Mr. Right.
Okay. And I'm gonna be the first one to do it. Absolutely. Come on.
That's Mr. Right. Can you guys see? That's
I would
Heavenly.
say he looks like somebody who's been in the game for a long time and still got them same damn suits from 25 years ago. I'm so proud of
You see what I mean about Heavenly? Heavenly smile.
my husband right here in the back. And this contract is important to me because
Oh God! Anyway, let me stop this, guys. You heard Heavenly. She's got big mouth, honestly, but I must say I could stop laughing because I'm not gonna lie. Looking at Mr. Right, he got sued like came like from 1970. Me look confident and apparently quite successful with 25 funeral homes in Miami and wants to do business um We both we heavily I heavily described him like a man that's been around and hasn't changed his suit for a long time. In other words, he looks like he's come from the other ages, whatever that may be. Anyway, there you go, people. So anyway, it turns out that Heavenly's wig shop, wig and beauty shop. Everything went well. The girls or the ladies were fabulous. Paul modeled fantastically as Paul always does, and the whole thing seemed very swimmingly, very nice. And I must say, well done to you, Doctor Heavenly. You did well. You did everything with such poise, such grace, and it's nice to see a woman, even though, like I said, she's a doctor who seems quite multi-skilled, and the fashion went well, and I wish her all the best. And it was also good to see Dr. Contessa and all the ladies come to support their friends, because that's what the women do anyway. And it's always good to support one another, especially as women. And so we see that everything went swimmingly well, and then all we were now seeing is the prerequisite of, rather, the preview of what is going to happen on the next episode. I think it showed Contessa shouting at heavily at some point, hugging her. And I assume we're going to see probably all the ladies, because it seems like it's not just Contessa. All the ladies have this problem with Heavenly, talking about them on her YouTube shows, which in a way I can understand. But then, being a content creator, you try to give it authenticity. But then we'll wait and see what the ladies have to say. But all in all, for me, I enjoyed watching this episode. And before I forget, earlier, somewhere in the middle, we saw Dr. Simone and her husband having lunch with their son. What's his name? I've forgotten, their first son, who apparently is in his first long term relationship. And clearly they have a good relationship with a young girl who's like a Chinese American, or Japanese American, I should say. And this episode for me, I would say it was basically 7.5 over 10. I enjoyed it. And then, if you've watched it, Married to Medicine, season 9, episode 2, and you have a different opinion, please drop me a comment and let me know what you think. I love to hear from you. And please, before you pass this video, subscribe to support my channel. Hit the like button, it's very free, and share this video with your friends and family so they get to hear about me too. And if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, please drop me a comment or send me a message via my email. You'll find it somewhere there on my YouTube channel. And by all means, please, hit the notification bell so when I upload or come live at any time, you get to see my new videos. And on this note, that's my review of Married to Medicine Season 9, Episode 2. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I do look forward to the next one. And until then, guys, you take care and remain safe and blessed. Bye bye.